Hey guys, welcome back to Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
And I am probably Commander clocking as if this is the correct program that's running.
Ah, I see what you did there. That's nice.
Thank you.
So yeah, today we're here to talk about holodecks, holotechnology, that kind of thing, because we just saw one in Discovery. Well, I don't know if it's considered. I don't know if it was really a holodeck there. I think it was more like a shooting range, so shooting gallery kind of thing in the armory.
A few fans have expressed some concern about introducing a holodeck-like room several eras too early. But we're here to discuss, is that actually the case? Should you be as annoyed or should you be enjoying the canon? But let's just talk about our personal feelings for a second. How did you feel seeing this, let's just say a holographic recreation of this battle simulation? How did you feel about seeing it?
A little conflicted, I guess. I was excited to see the action sequence that it was doing, but it did seem out of place for the time period. But then again, like I said, I think it's attached to the armory, and I think it's just basically a shooting gallery. It's not really a holodeck per se, with that level of sophistication. I think it's more just for target practice and things. So that's the way I rationalize it in my head. So
yeah, my first reaction is I wish they didn't.
Yeah. Well, me too.
That is one of those technology jumps. Now, we will go into the animated series in a minute, but just from this point, because as the title says, this is a Cage era holodeck. Cage era.
Newest ship in the fleet, though. One of the newest ships. The most advanced starship in the fleet.
Well, that's one of the things we got onto. Now, yeah, so I wish they hadn't, but we think we can probably explain why and how. But let's go into some of the backstory first. So in Enterprise, which is in 2150s, a long, long time before this, they have no holodecks. They haven't even got holograms. They watch everything on monitors, and they see a Xyrillian ship, I believe it's Xyrillians, and they're like, oh my god, holodecks, and that is a huge deal. Even the Klingons like, whoa, this is almost perfect. We also don't get the technology, but we know it exists. Jump now to Discovery, which is in the year 2256, long time in the future, and now they seem very nonchalant about that. And it's a holographic recreation. But the fact is, though, is that this version of Star Trek have got interactive, 3D, totally movable holograms for long-range instant communication. So unlike TOS, technology level has been jumped ahead. So if you have that technology for instant communication, why on earth shouldn't you have at least simple holographic technology around the rest of the place? Unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily fit as well. But now we get into the context of the original series. Now, is the holodeck as radical as you would think, Stuart?
Well, as you may or may not know, Gene Roddenberry did intend to have it introduced into Star Trek. I believe season 3, wasn't it?
He had an idea and he wants to implement it. Yeah, but budget.
Yeah, budget squashed that. However, in the animated series, in the episode The Practical Joker, we do see a recreation room, or a recreation room, as they should call it, which is basically a holodeck, and it kind of malfunctions in that episode. So,
and obviously, guys, now while most of us saw the TNG first, then went back and saw animated series, it was like, oh, of course they use a holodeck from TNG. No, that was first. They legitimately invented it back then in 1974.
Yeah.
So
year I was born. Good year.
Hey, so it was not new in TNG. Obviously, though, the animated series wasn't as widespread watched. Fair enough. And it was meant to be a new Marvel in TNG. That's why the animated series is not considered canon, because they do other things. Yeah. Although one episode obviously is considered canon, but this might imply this is more considered canon. So if you take the animated series, and then conceptually they're pulling elements from this, they did have a sort of everyday holographic recreation room in 20 to 70. This is 2256, so we're looking at 14 years earlier. That is a hell of a leap. I mean, 14 years of our technology. I mean, smartphones didn't exist in 2003. That was a long time ago in terms of all of our modern technology. But this is the future, so everything's already advanced. What is 14 years? When was it invented? But there is some precedent for that. Now, the people who are complaining, we don't want to complain. We want to look at both sides. Say in TNG, Riker and such, they're like, "Oh my God, it's the holodeck." They are amazed.
Well, they do state in TNG that it's the next level of holographic holodeck. It's so uber more realistic. You can smell the air.
Yes.
And I think that goes to what I was going to say about the animated series one. I think it's very rudimentary. It's probably not as advanced as far as
anything.
The sensation. This is exactly. Just visual representations of things and not quite as immersive.
Yep. Yeah, it's like they're not using the holograms and force fields. It's just simple things like you can't interact with things as much, or there's a whole range of.
Or you walk towards the wall and then it has to pause and says loading, and then it loads the next segment of the road you're walking on.
Yeah, absolutely. Or like there's a tree line that you can't get past because
like a video game.
Yeah, because it I mean one thing about the holodeck is that it's such an interesting concept. It's one big flat room. But in TNG version, now this is obviously the premiere version, you can so you can walk in and it sort of extrapolates your vision, separate people, and pull them together, move them apart. Like when Barclay does his hologram, Riker can come in from a totally different area, or Geordie, meet him somewhere, but the room is only a few, it's only a few meters wide. I mean, in real space, if the holodeck wasn't dampening, I guess, the reality of the situation, you could say, Barclay, come over here, and then walk through the hologram. No, it's creating this big virtual area. So I think
I was going to say, it uses force perspective and force fields. It pushes you in certain directions and moves things on the wall to make you feel like you're walking straight, but you're not. So, exactly. It's very advanced.
My thought about the TNG version, about it being the next step, is that is a fully immersive, fully 3D, and independent. It's not so much one person, one team can go in and live one scenario. You can create the world, say Fairhaven, and somehow fit 25 people in this room, and because of how the force fields are separating them, you can still have independent situations when really you're really crowded. Whereas older versions, that is not the situation. That's the advancement. The individual person-on-person text. Why TOS, I believe from the episode I'm looking at some screen caps, it was very much groups of people having the same situation. It's like the room changes where you are and you have to sort of stay together, but you can still do a lot of cool things. Now that brings us back to this version. Now, what do you mean by shooting range? What impression were you getting? And what could this mean in terms of technology?
Well, when it shut down, it seemed like it was like a hallway almost, like a more narrowed space, much like a shooting range. You got a target at the end. You can set it up whichever way you want. But when it shut down, that's kind of the vibe I got, and I'm like, okay, fine. And then they walk out, and they got the gun rack there where they put up their phaser rifles. So I assumed that it's just attached to the armory. It's just part of the ship, for shooting practice and whatever, which made me think shooting range. And I don't really have any problem with that. I think that's an absolutely fantastic idea. Now, they were moving around quite a bit in there, and they were hiding behind doors and, jumping out and firing at Klingons and stuff. So I'm not exactly sure how it worked. But when the simulation ended, they were both standing there pretty rigid on like this circular thing at the end. So I'm not sure if it was more of a VR experience or exactly how it worked interactively. I'd like to learn more about it. But that's kind of the vibe I've got, more of a shooting range type of deal.
Yeah, I mean, modern day technology, there's that great device that you can stand on.
And
that's
run.
a treadmill. Yeah, so you can run any direction, and then you put a VR headset on, boom, you can now see in any direction and move in any direction. You give them the goggles, you give them the hands and the gun. Suddenly now you're in a completely immersive environment. That's obviously modern day tech. This is so much more advanced. But what I got from this, and now thinking about it through our review, is it really... just like it's not the Oculus, it's the Vive, I believe, has lighthouses. So for example, these two people walk into this room. It's a firing range, as you said. They know that we have about 4 foot from each other of space in a circle. That is the space of reality. Everything else is just a hologram. So we have to stay 4 foot next to each other, and then the world will move with us, sort of thing. And obviously the floor moves and we move and such. So that's why when you look at the scene, they are staying together. They're clearing rooms, but it's all very much in formation. So if you're looking at a shooting gallery, you're saying, right, we can do tactical maneuvers. That's it. Or we can look at something as a vista, or we can, watch a film. Like, it's a very limited perspective, and I'm sure only 2, 3, 4 people max. It's a very minimal, limited thing. At this point, they're not getting smells. You're not going to get the reality. You can't necessarily touch anything apart from maybe walls, which are more, I guess, solid. Put more power into it. It is really just a training simulation thing, as opposed to creating the world. And they probably need, someone probably needs to go in and actually create the 3D environment.
And to add to that, much like a shooting range, you have different, or if you go to an armory, you have different shooting lanes for different people. Why not have a few of these rooms side by side? So if you want to train an away team mission or an away team to work together, they each have their own pad, 2 per room kind of thing. But you can link all of them together into one visual simulation. In your simulation, you can see your other teammates.
I mean, you can't interact obviously because you're in different environments, but you can see each other. You can, it's different paths in the same game. Yeah, it's just an extension of VR tech. And if you look at how the Klingons are acting, they're not intelligent. They're just grunts. They're just shooting, and they're just running in straight lines. I mean, if you watch the scene, it's very, very video gamey. The AI, because that's another thing. That was the big evolution with what was her name in TNG? Amet, the French woman that really convinced Riker. Aminette. You'll think about it. I'll keep talking. That was the next evolution. It was a totally realistic person.
Minuet. Sorry. Shouldn't have taken that long to remember that. Minuet.
AI is an artificial person, and most of these, look again, Barclay's program. He created these people. They're not very fleshed out. The fake Troy. You could beat their programming quite effectively, even though they are a supercomputer. Whereas Minuet was this really advanced thing. So we can build 3D environments now. You can have VR in a 3D environment now. You can build a film with. Animated films are all 3D. So that part is the easy thing. It's the AI. It's the realistic movement. It's the scope. It's the scale.
And it's also like I mentioned too with the TNG one, it was the next evolution. So there's nuances. So you can feel a breeze on your face. You can smell pollen and stuff in the air. I don't think that was the case. Definitely in the animated series one, if there was one in TOS. It could be that there was a holodeck on the Enterprise. We never saw it because Captain Kirk confiscated it for his own personal pleasure palace, and it was locked off. No one knew about it.
Well, again,
for the janitor.
Scruffy just spends all this time. That's why I never see Scruffy. Yeah, I like that, but again, same problem. If there's no sensation to anything, then you can't use it as a fun dungeon. You can't have that time. Then TNG, obviously, that's the next level. It can only be. Again, VR is limited because you can't necessarily move in the VR space. It's a headset. So think about this: if all you can do is recreate a simple 3D environment, well, not simple, photoreal, but 3D environments. Maybe they can't even do that many trees. They can't do foliage. They can't do because everything's interacting. Maybe the sea distance isn't more than half a mile. You can't do these epic things.
Yeah. Well, there's so much nuance in an environment. Like there's humidity. There's different factors like humidity, smells, things like that. Yeah. So, and I think that's the case here. It's just more of a simple program for target practice, and we all need our target practice time in.
Yeah. I mean, why not? And if you also look, there is very subtle holographic effects when they get shot and some other little movements. There is, they're not fully
video
fleshed
game
out.
effects.
Absolutely, they're not fully realised. And like I said, when it all comes apart, it's a very small room, relatively speaking. It's got holo projectors. I'm sure that it's also, they're these pillars. I'm sure if they go outside the pillars, that's the end of the hologram. There is a finite space as opposed to a complete room. So straight away, the technology is much more rudimentary. And like I say, it would have been cool if they couldn't even touch anything, like the door, like the control panel. That would have been a really nice next level thing. Like they have to say door, or it opens automatically. That would have been nice. So that it can't even physically. There's nothing corporeal. They're not even using the force fields yet. That would have been nice. But I'm okay with simple walls. Simple geometry. It's like the Terminator T1000. You can create simple objects. A knife, but nothing complicated. So they can create walls and such that are just flat. If they've got force fields, why not?
And I was going to say, one of the fan films, was it Phase 2?
Oh, Star Trek Continues has the first scene of Star Trek Continues Episode 1 is a holodeck with Doug
Drexler. Yeah. Okay, it was Continues. Okay. So they incorporated it there as well.
It should be there.
And I think it was Kirk that was impressed with the technology as soon as the simulation ended. He was, that's pretty impressive technology. And then it was just kind of left, which is awesome. It's kind of like, this is the thing that happened. Let's not make a big deal of it. So,
well, it's the same thing. Like I said, VR has limitations. We don't use VR most times. You give us 4K on our phones. Okay, most people won't ever use that. You give everyone the ability to talk to a guy or shoot a thing.
Well, I mean,
limitations.
I have a 3D TV upstairs with 3D movies. I love getting immersed in 3D movies, but you got to wear the glasses, and it's just kind of sometimes a pain in the. So you just want to throw in the regular movie and watch it. So the odd time you'll use the 3D experience. So yeah, totally.
It would have been very cool if they had something on their suit that was like a pack that gave them like a virtual presence inside the computer program, so that when they press something, it would react rather than just. Again, it would be nice if they de-evolved it very slightly, but then again, it's the future. You know what I mean? And I'm sure in the 60s, if they'd done the holodeck, it would have been just the same. A white room with little glowy balls and just on a real set for the hologram. Like, it would have been perfect. And then the limitations we retcon back in. Now, what do you think, though? The people could be saying, well, we're an apologist now, because obviously TOS shouldn't have holodecks. Obviously, TNG, that was a big new thing. I think we've laid out the case pretty succinctly here. But what do you think about people who complain about us justifying an obvious, shouldn't have done it, but...
Well, it hasn't been explained fully as to what it is, so we're not really doing that. Like I said, I feel that this is more of a shooting range just attached to the armory, just for target practice. It's not for Ensign Ricky, who's on, got a couple hours off to log in time on the holodeck and go have some fun. This is more for training simulations. This is a tactical simulator. It's not really a holodeck per se. But when we say we're trying to be apologetic for it, we're not, because it was mentioned in the animated series. Like, they did include it in Star Trek Continues. Not that that's totally legit, but it is worth mentioning. It's been brought up over the years, and it's kind of been one of those canonistic problems that we have with Star Trek, that it was in the animated series, but if you don't really consider the animated series canon, then was it really around during TOS? Because we never saw it on screen, even though Gene Roddenberry wanted to include it in season 3.
Which should almost be enough to have it there.
Exactly. It should be.
If he thought about the technology, then why not? And again, how they make it, how they represent it is really interesting. But is that not a great reference? Are you not being closed-minded to say it's only in TNG? Well, again, it was in the 70s. Not that long after. They're just realizing it. I do feel, though, also that the way the gun rack is that that's not even... Cause that's not very armory configuration. I feel like because they have counters, I think those are the holographic training weapons. So it has a counter, so they're all plugged into it. Like you have a laser tag kit. It's just the same thing. Well, you walk in...
They did have little like sensors almost on the top of their shoulders.
They all have them. That's the standard armor. But I agree, that could be included. I mean, this is the tactical armor. Why not have it all in one? But yeah, that was normal. But that'd be kind of cool. And they're custom versions of the guns that obviously work with the holograms, so they're just fake guns in a fake room.
And it should be said too that Lorca did get hit in the back with one of the blasts. There was a little green impact that startled him a bit. So it is an interactive technology as far as that goes as well. So.
And it's damn graphic, because again, I screen capped a burn through a face.
Yes. Yeah. And that's pretty awesome, actually.
But again, this is when obviously those people who don't believe the visual continuity of Trek should be adhered to, where it was made in the 60s, it should stay in the 60s, do it fresh or not at all. That obviously, look at modern technology, you can't not look forward and think we have something in some form similar. But obviously in the tapestry of Trek, it's difficult. I mean, the fact that this is 16 years or 14, 16 years before the non-canon yet sort of canon reference, is this de-advanced enough? Is this, but if we extrapolate it correctly, is it limited enough to make sense that they have it that early? That means they do have it on the Economy, do have it on the A, the B, the C, the Refit, the Excelsior. They've had holographic projection rooms for decades, which would kind of make the EMH having only hologram projectors on the sickbay kind of stupid if they've had holographic projectors for communication on the bridge for 150 years.
Well, and that fits in with the whole not everything jives with our continuity.
You mean Discovery continuity?
Well, yeah, exactly. For Discovery and for the advanced technology that it's displaying as a show, this is perfect.
Yes.
Tying it into canon can be done if you really weave that needle around and try to fit that in the tapestry. You can do it, as we tend to do. We retcon a lot of things
because we've got to. They're telling us it's canon, so you kind of you go by the rules we've been given.
So I think it's perfectly fine for what it is.
If it's how we think it is.
Yes, we need to learn more about it.
If it is a holodeck fully featured and it can do whatever the TNG one did, I think that's kind of ludicrous. Because again, as I said to you off camera, it devalues it in TNG. You know, you can't say 100 years and we find out the subtlety is right. It's like, no, that's silly. Century, really? Didn't take us 100 years to get the subtleties of cars right. No, we made some pretty big strides. You know,
exactly. Yeah. So,
but it was a cool scene, and I do want to see it again. But like I say, limitations. I'd love to see again these two people training. Say next episode, maybe it's Michael Burnham and Ash training, and she steps out, and then suddenly you see this wall of hologram, kind of like an Into Darkness when they go out of the warp tunnel, and then suddenly it's just you see this weird reflection of the the hologram, and she steps back in, and it makes sense again. So there's a distinct 4-foot limit. Because you can imagine, anything can be focused, and it makes sense. Like I say, that you have that in the technology with I think the Vive. You can physically walk in this environment, and the 3D knows that you're moving in this environment. So if we can do that now, just add in the holograph. It's like 3D without glasses. That's a pretty advanced tech. I don't know how they do that. They do it. It's just focusing the tech.
Exactly. So. There you go, guys. That's our thoughts on this futuristic
Cage holodeck.
Cage era holodeck program thing. What do you guys think? Does it fit? What do you think about the use of it in the animated series, and Gene's idea to incorporate it into the season 3 of TOS? I mean, I think that's a precedent there for that it should have existed. So it goes back to the canon being what we see on screen, and a lot of people are nitpicky about that, but we need to talk about that here. So we're looking forward to your comments below. We will definitely read them, and love to hear what you think. And
as we always say, lots more to talk about for these episodes, and expect a whole another week of great little sub-reviews, great discussions, great analyses, and trying to not necessarily pick apart, because that's not the point, is to try and look at both sides, analyse, theorise, make it make sense, try and think what the producers are thinking, because again, everything has been designed. They had to design and build that set for the hologram, They had to build and design in 3D the effect. It's all had to be thought through, so we try and think about how they're thinking it through, and give them credit where it deserves, and call out the potential canon mistakes, or the sloppy little bits when they happen. Try and be fair.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you want to see more videos, because we are going to be doing a lot of those, please help us out. You can do so by clicking the Patreon link in the description below, or by heading over to trekyards.com and clicking that donate button.
Or simply subscribe to this channel for all of our great videos, this show, other shows. We do a lot of cool stuff. This is not just a show, it's a channel, the Trekyards channel, with the Fleet Yard spin-off, and always cool things on the horizon. So be part of the family, join in, and of course look for the different Trekyards Facebook groups. The main Trekyards is a hive of non-scum, non-villainy, just great people about great things, but it's definitely a hive of them. So go check it out.
Yes, and don't forget to hit that like button, because that helps us out as well. So until next time, guys, I'm Captain Foley,
and I am Commander Coggins.
End simulation.